Wise in the 61 car. Remember, the top 30 in owner points locked in, meaning Danica also has a spot guaranteed because their team the owner points from the CJM team of last season.
And it's a lot cooler right now than what it was yesterday morning, so I'm real curious to see how this new tire combination kind of hooks up with this racetrack. Last week in California, the new tires, fresh tires, barrel scuffed tires, whatever, they really liked that cool track temperature. We saw some fast times.
You did, and yesterday, these guys, this is the third time that the Nationwide cars have been on the track. They were on the track yesterday for 50 minutes and then for another hour and 15 or 20 minutes. And those were almost two totally different conditions because they went out on a green track, then they went out on a really well rubbered up track, and the sun was out, and now they're here. Track's rubbered up because it's not rained yet, but at the same time, it's a lot cooler today.
Kyle, we often talk about where you go out, the luck of the draw in terms of making your qualifying intent. It seems like with these weather conditions,
the rhyme or reason sometimes when you look at these times, but Josh Wise has picked up a lot of speed over what he practiced at yesterday. So, again, going out on this morning doesn't look like it's a bad thing. He's about 4/10 quicker than what he ran yesterday.
But you know what? And how many times have you seen a driver do this, Jeff? You practice in your last practice, and you go out and you watch those first few cars that go out as a driver, and you think, my God, the racetrack's 4 or 5 tenths faster. I'm really going to pick it up. And then you barrel off in that corner, and you see Elvis like we were talking about, and it doesn't stick like you want it to.
Here's a guy that was really bragging about his race car yesterday, Mike Wallace. He said his car was bad fast through the corners. He told his car owner, Johnny Davis, look, the only way I'm going to get beats down the straightaway. They're not going to beat me through the corner. He said he ran through 3 and 4 yesterday wide open. Let's see if that throttle moves at all so far. He did come out of it a little bit, right back to it wide open, off of turn 4. Wasn't out of it long, very long at all, Kyle.
No, and he was very happy with his car, as you said. And he said he did that on old tires yesterday. And when you do it on old tires, it gives you a huge confidence to go in there on brand new stickers.
Well, he ran a 30-50 in the first practice, a little bit slower in the second, but he's right there. If he picks up like Josh Wise did, he has every opportunity here to put out a pretty quick time.
Mike making his 350th NASCAR Nationwide Series start this afternoon. Finished 7th here in 2000.
Top 25. It'll be a good step in the right direction.
Danica Patrick going for it today. Her third race in the Nationwide Series, guys.
Well, Bob, Steve Wallace is now the man to beat. 181.830 miles per hour, a sub 30-second lap at a 29.69.
That's a great lap. That's an incredible lap. And you can bet your bottom dollar he ran wide open around here. But it's funny sometimes. When they first started with the Nationwide cars at Atlanta, you could run wide open around that racetrack. But running wide open around the racetrack wasn't the fastest way around a racetrack. Sometimes you run a car so fast into the corner, when it finally sets in the middle of the corner, it lands on itself and it bogs the car down. It's almost like putting too much steering wheel in it and just slowing the car down. Sometimes it's best to feather out, let the car take a different set. So when we watch Danica qualify, or you watch some of these guys roll out a little bit, that's not necessarily always a bad thing. It's just what their car, the fastest way for their car around the racetrack.
You got to have good feel about that. We talk about balance, Steve. We talk about the feel. You watch this 34 car with Tony Raines in it. I say it's bottoming out a little bit around this racetrack. We saw a lot of guys yesterday having trouble with the bumps that this racetrack. It looks smooth, but it's still very rough. See the cars bobbing up and down through the corners right there. I saw that 34 car bottoming out.
Kyle, you mentioned yesterday during one of the practice shows that Greg Biffle had told you, you know what, the Gibbs cars are already the ones to beat. Well, Stephen Wallace is not in a Gibbs car, but you know what? They have an alliance with Gibbs. He's in a Toyota. He and Brendan Gaughan, his teammate car. He is 4th of 10 drivers who have taken time here on the 1.5 mile. Las Vegas Motor Speedway as NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying continues. Overcast skies and a threat of rain, but so far so good here in Vegas. Front row, Joe Nemechek on track, and let's go to Krista, who has a Las Vegas native.
That's right, and that would be Kyle Busch. Kyle, okay, you checked it off your Cup list here last year, but the Nationwide Series has still kind of thrown you for a loop. Is this the year that you check that one off the list?
I don't know. We'll see. The Z-Line Camry was really fast yesterday, so we feel good about it. We just got to get ourselves a good, solid qualifying lap here, and then see what we can get and how the race plays out today if we race. So weather's not bad. Being a Vegas native, I think we're okay, actually. I see some blue over that way, so we'll see what it turns out.
All right, race car driver and weather forecaster today. Thanks, Kyle.
Of course, Kyle won the Sprint Cup Series race here 1 year ago.
Rocket Road Joe's got a pretty good second lap going here, guys.
Wow.
He's up third quick.
Just a minute ago, we were all Toyotas, and now we've got 3 Chevys in the top 5.
Back to Bob.
Here is another Vegas native, Brendan Gaughan, and you let your teammate squeak one out over you. What's that about?
That's all right. You know, Steve-O, as long as
If somebody can beat that, they deserve to be.
Yeah, have at it.
I mean, yeah, go ahead, man.
2 Sprint Cup practices coming up here on Speed later today, 1:30 and 2:30 Eastern. Bob?
Well, Steve, let's do a little comparison. Kelly Byers just got knocked off by Kevin Harvick. Last weekend, he qualified 32nd, finished 7th. This time, you're near the top of the chart, so what can we expect in the race from you?
Well, it's all we worked on yesterday was race trim, so we figured maybe qualifying was going to get rained out, but the HendrickCars.com Chevrolet has been good all weekend right off the truck. Everyone's did a great job. I had to redeem myself after last week. I qualified 32nd. I felt bad about it for the guys, but we recovered good, finished 7th, and we got a really good race car, so look forward to racing later today.
Kelly Byers, one word to describe Harvick's run: wow.
Yeah, that's what we said.
I think that's what a lot of people in the garage area say. But, you know, yesterday we had a couple of cars that were really good. Biffle and those guys, Biffle and Carl and the Roush Fords, they're going to be tough, you know, when qualifying, we get to them in the order here. Okay,
Statisticians, I mean,
you have a sticky note.
Technicalities here. They're saying the track banking was completely changed from 12 degrees to 20 degrees here. Darlington and Atlanta were just flipped. Okay.
Correct. I'm going to argue about Atlanta. They changed the whole front stretch at Atlanta.
Not the banking.
That's true.
Not the banking.
That's true. They left the front stretch flat.
Hey, I just want to ask you one question. Straightforward question. Darlington is still in
18 of our races, and we're looking for the other half, but hopefully we can have a good weekend this weekend and turn this year around.
All right, thanks. Yeah, Roush Fenway, very good at this track.
A lot of similarities. He should have given them a shout out to Biloxi, Mississippi, man. They got nice casinos.
Yeah, they have gaming.
Yeah, they got great gaming down there, man. I'm telling you, we've been through there a couple times with the charity ride.
How old is Ricky Stenhouse?
Yeah, well, maybe that's true. He probably didn't know they had gaming.
He hasn't had the opportunity.
It's like Kyle says, they can walk through the casino, but they have to keep moving.
Exactly
My bad.
right.
That's my bad on that one. I'm sorry.
Well, Brian Keselowski is 28. He can gamble.
All right, that's good.
Well, Stenhouse is just 22, so he's only had an opportunity for really a year to be able to hang out in those places.
Keselowski finished 34th last weekend at the Auto Club Speedway in California. Older brother to Brad Keselowski, who's driving for Penske this year.
You know, it's cool about this sport. You know, he's Brad's older brother, but they're dead. Ron and Bob. You know, when you looked at that, their dad and their uncle used to race. That, you know, that's what I like to see. Obviously, I grew up in the sport, but when you see the Parsons and the Pattys and the Allisons and the Waltrips and people like that, that is what, to me, that still epitomizes and says what this sport.
19-year-old. I feel like I keep saying that. 19-year-old James Buescher. 12th overall in the one car, and our new daddy, Carl Edwards, standing by with Bob Dillner.
All right, Carl Edwards faster than the pole sitter or provisional pole sitter Kevin Harvick on the first lap. So what happened on the second lap, man?
I just ran out of steam. That's all we've got. So it's a good lap for us. So, I mean, this Copart Fusion's good. I'd really rather start on the outside. So, you know, hopefully that's where we'll end up starting is second. And I think we got a great race car for the race. You know, it's amazing how fast everybody's going right now. There's a lot of grip out there, and it's a lot of fun. But man, I really wanted that pole, but I did all I could do, and it was really close. My guys did a great job, so it'll be a fun race.
Got to ask you, how's the baby?
The baby's doing great, and still, it's still sinking in. You know, I woke up this morning, I talked to Kate, and she's sending me pictures on my phone and stuff, and it's just it's the greatest thing in the world.
And Steve Burns, he said he has changed diapers.
Of course he has. Of course he has, Bob. He's hands-on.
Okay, we're not getting into another baby show today. We had that yesterday. My man Kenny Wallace here. These guys, they're racing on a budget this year, and he practices none. I think he practiced 3 or 4 laps at California and then qualified. And here he comes in out here and practices just a few laps yesterday, but that's a good lap for him.
My track record, I'm about the worst there is. So what an accomplishment for this team. We just got out there and, you know, pulled the belts tight and ran it as hard as it would go and didn't breathe for about 60 seconds. But awesome lap. I just can't tell you how proud I am of this crew. crew and brand new race team. I really thought that lap Kevin laid down was untouchable, and we did it. So awesome job to everybody back there at Penske Racing and here at the track. This is an awesome feat.
6/100ths of a second he's on top by.
That Paul he's talking about is Paul Wolf. He's crew chief. It was a pretty incredible lap. It really is.
Yeah, I don't care. I still find this amazing, you know. And sitting at home, it's hard to understand this. But when these guys say they don't breathe, you know what I mean? You just pull. You do breathe. Don't get me wrong. But the thing is, when you get to that corner, you just go and you hunker down in that thing and you turn it into the corner and when you get to the backstretch, it's like, okay, I can breathe because I'm in a straight line here, because it does. I mean, these guys, to run wide open on a 1.5-mile racetrack, if we go back 10 years, was unheard of.
Oh, yeah.
Unheard of. Tire technology wasn't there, aero wasn't there, and that's
Second of the go or go home drivers to qualify. He is 29th overall.
You mentioned Keselowski, and we've been talking about breaking track records. He comes back and he tops the new track record that Kevin Harvick had just set. I mean, by 6/100ths of a second. I mean, that was just an unbelievable lap.
And you know, right now we're sitting here, and you got Keselowski, you got Harvick, you got Edwards, and you got Hamlin. You got Dodge, you got Chevy, you got Ford, and you got Toyota. That's what NASCAR tries to do in every series, whether it be the Truck Series or the Nationwide Series or the Cup stops, and that's pretty impressive right there.
And let's refresh qualifying rules here for the Nationwide Series. Top 30 in owner points as opposed to top 35 in Sprint Cup locked in.
Yeah, we're now into that process of go or go homers. So we've already had, this is the third one right here with Jeremy Clements here in the 04 car. He is the fastest of the go or go homers. He's 25th currently, and again, it's going to be real tight. It looks like the speeds are really coming down. These guys are laying down some pretty impressive laps.
Yeah, you know, I'm a huge supporter of the top 35 on the Cup Series and having that protection zone for these guys. But I'm telling you, man, watching this, the top 30 is pretty cool because it adds another.
Air Force Thunderbird is practicing here at Nellis Air Force Base, but you know, do drivers, you know, text you a lot of times when you're on the air and give you information or give you a hard time? Because I know Darrell loves giving me and Larry a hard time.
There's one guy in particular down there in the bus lot that has been texting me all morning with things, and I keep threatening to say I'm on the air, but I'm not going to.
And some
tips
humor.
And stuff, and a lot of humor, a lot of humor. One of the things was, and I will say this, he wanted to know who I got fired to get this gig, because he thinks every time I get a new gig, I've got somebody fired. Okay, so that's just his way of busting on me.
Oh, me.
Shelby Howard on the racetrack now. We go back to Krista.
And Brian Scott turning heads here in the Nationwide Series. Now, you're a West Coast guy. Did you get to go back home and visit some family?
Yeah, it was really neat. After California, I spent a couple days in Palm Springs, and then went back to Boise, Idaho, and got to see some people and family and friends I haven't seen in a while. And that's nice. It's a good way to reset your mind and get ready for the next race. So I'm excited to be here, and I think we're going to have a good run.
How's the wrist?
The wrist is still the same. It's still broken, but looking forward to Vegas. We got StopRepairBills.com back on our Toyota after they were on it in Daytona. Really excited to have them back, and hopefully we can crash the party a little bit like we did last week. Go up there and try to break up the top three that are other manufacturers, get our Toyota up there and have another run, hopefully keep turning heads.
All right, thanks, Brian. Yeah, and Steve, he broke that wrist back in June. And
They did was make qualifying attempts because they got to get in. And when you have half the field that doesn't try to qualify and another 10 or 15 that do, it's going to mix up the qualifying order here a little bit.
And it's also going to give a lot of these guys who thought they could beat one guy heart failure because all of a sudden they lay down a lap like that and say, oh my gosh, I got to run that fast.
And the other thing it does, you know, Jason Leffler, we heard him say yesterday, you know, really I need to qualify in the top 10 because if you're not in the top 10 here when the race starts, it's a struggle for you all day long. He's been knocked back to 20th right now, and Howard beat him. Shelby Howard beat him. So these cars can actually put you in a worse position if you're in that top 35 because they keep knocking you back.
Yeah, you try to trying to pick your way through the traffic to get up there. All of a sudden, you know, guys who got clean air like a Brad Keselowski, he can come around and lap you in a hurry if you're not careful.
If he's going to run 29.12s all day, he's going to lap you in a big hurry.
And a good first lap for Danny Eflin. All of a sudden, you know, making this race is taking on a whole different look. I mean, a lot of times Larry and I were together doing this stuff, or even Hermie Sadler, we'll start looking and figure out where that brake line is going to be. And so far, guys, it looks like you got to run a 30 flat or better to even have a chance maybe making this race. And that's tough.
It's funny. How many times do you go to the racetrack and you don't know, you don't have a clue when qualifying starts where that brake line is going to be. And on a day like today when the racetrack has stayed the same, when qualifying has stayed the same, and these guys...
It's 8 p.m. Eastern for the premiere of Fast Track to Fame. There's the aforementioned Parker Kligerman, 19 years old. I swear I think I've said that more than 3 times.
Parker Kligerman, or in the words of Larry McReynolds, Patrick Klingerman.
Patrick Klinderman.
I felt so bad for Larry that day, man, but that was funny.
But
I don't care.
Larry never gave up.
Never gave up, man. And I kept struggling with the Patrick part because I could get the Parker part, you know what I mean? But that was good, man. And he had, I'm going to tell you, this kid drove the wheels off that thing in a few ARCA races last year. Some great racing. He's got a ton of talent.
Kyle, what I like about this kid is he told me his father discouraged him from racing. He said, I'll pay for your racing for 1 year.
Yeah.
Then after that, he was on his own, borrowed money, scraped money together. He was completely on his own, and he's making it.
And you know, that's a kid that wants to do it. And that's the way you have to look at it. And he's got a good lap going here. But
He got a great lap.
That's the way you have to look at it. When Adam first started, he wanted to run a late model car. So we bought a late model car, and he and I worked on it together. And one day he quit showing up. Well, when he quit showing up, I quit showing up. I'm not going to build a race car for you. And that's what this kid's father was saying was, hey,
nobody in his family had ever raced.
And I said it yesterday in a joking manner that it's a genetic flaw that makes you want to be a race car driver, be around racing. Yeah. But it always amazes me when I talk to people and they grow up and they want to be a race car driver or they want to be in racing, because I'm like, I did grow up in it. You know, you grew up around it. We all grew up with it as part of who we were. But, you know, you get guys that come out of California and come out of the Midwest and you think they never grew up with stock car racing. What made you want to be a race car driver? And that intrigues me as much as anything, talking to some of these young guys and the desire they have to do it.
And here's a good example of somebody who didn't really grow up in the hotbed of racing.
No.
Not at all.
Out where he
Pacific Northwest.
Pacific Northwest area, and building cars, building sand buggies and stuff like that. You know, led him down to, of all places, Phoenix, Arizona for the winter heat series, Tucson area winter heat series, and to be discovered by the late Benny Parsons and recommended by Benny to Jack Roush. And Jack Roush said, you know, I like the way this guy does business. I think he's got a great opportunity to make a big move here. And here he is, Greg Biffle, right now. First lap, he's 13th quickest. Not a very impressive first lap, but let's see what Greg can do on his second lap. He's in. That's what he needed to do. That's that solid lap.
That's that solid
he
lap
needed to get in with. Now I can go for it.
Yeah, you know, when you're in that position that Biffle's in, you can't go for the pole on the first lap. You can't just hang it all out, because you've got to make sure you're in the race, because that's what you came out here for, not to sit on the pole. Greg Biffle came out here to race.
Tracker's moving, but it's not going to be moving enough. So Brad Keselowski, you can breathe a little easier. He winds up 7th quick.
Go home track. Stanton Barrett on the racetrack. I want to mention, too, Greg Biffle now locked in by virtue of his run, 7th overall. And there's Stanton Barrett, 37 years old, out of Bishop, California.
Yeah, it's funny because Stanton, you know, his father Stan, okay, that started
the original Skull Bandit.
The original Skull Bandit, and I meant to say this a minute ago when we were talking about some stuff. We're talking about how young these guys are. Harry Gant, when he used to kick everybody's rear end in this series, you'd talk to him in the garage area and he'd say, yeah, go over and teach them old high school boys how to do it. You know, sad part is there are high school boys now, man. They're all high school boys. You know what I mean? That's the funny part. He was talking about going and showing Bobby Labonte and Jeff Burton and Ward Burton and those guys how to get it done at Bristol and Darlington, places like that. And now it's a totally different game, man.
First lap good enough for 23rd quickest for Stanton Barrett.
Good run.
Very decent run right there. Doesn't pick up on the second lap, but it does.
Was looking at the 27 car as maybe the car to beat. Was that a lap to your expectations?
You know, I thought it would have been a little faster than that. You know, the car is so good. The car's got such great grip. I held it to the floor from the time I left pit road, so that's 2 laps flat on the board and no brake at all. So that tells me the car's got a lot of downforce in it, you know, which downforce makes a little drag. So when the track gets slick and, you know, handling becomes an issue, this car's going to be really fast. That's what's going to count.
Well said by the owner of Sunset Speedway.
All right, thank you very much, Bob Dillner. 56 car is driven by Kevin LePage. And when he first started racing, I used to think his first name was Shelburne, Vermont. That's how Ken Squire used to refer to him. Shelburne, Vermont's Kevin LePage.
Yeah, but Ken refers to everybody from Vermont or New Hampshire or Maine about where they're from. And you heard him say 25, let's go. You know, which means he needs to pick it up a little bit. You know, he's on a handheld. We got him at a 30-21. Obviously on a handheld, they got him at a 25.
Got to beat 8 to get locked into the show here, and that's what he's trying to do on his second lap. He's definitely moved up a little bit quicker here on his second lap.
Yeah, and this is a funny thing. You when you're in this position where you have to qualify, that's all he's got.
That might be good, though, man. That might be good.
That is.
It is.
Yeah, that got him up in there.
That locks Parker Kligerman into the field. Oh, we'll answer that question and find out who makes the show after this. Great job by Scott Riggs, the 2002 Nationwide Series Rookie of the Year. He locks himself in. And just to update that, Paul Menard, Greg Biffle, Shelby Howard, Scott Riggs, and Parker Kligerman all locked in.
Johnny Chapman here. We talked about him yesterday, and we talked about that team. He crashed first rattle out of the box, man. Spun coming out of 2 over there, got down below the line, and those guys worked their rear. No matter what he runs today, those guys worked their rear ends off to get this car back on the back on the track just at the end of the second practice. So he's got very few laps out there, man.
Johnny's a former Dash Series champion, 4-cylinder cars. You know who'll kill you in Dash Series trivia? Michael Waltrip will kill you. He will eat your lunch.
Well, he's a former champion of the series.
I'm saying he laid Larry Hoopaw on me.
No way.
Larry Hoopaw. That's after I went Mike Swaim on him.
He raced against those guys and ran them hard and won races and was really good there.
Kevin LePage has locked himself in. Bumping has started. John Borneman III and Andy Ponstein will not race later today, weather permitting.
Gut check time, guys, for the ones in the car and the ones that are standing out there waiting.
Well, there's your series leader in terms of all-time starts, Jason Keller. Keller will be followed by Morgan Shepherd, Danny O'Quinn Jr., Derek Cope, Dennis Setzer, and Brian Scott.
Jason driving for Mark Smith out of Charlotte, North Carolina this year.
Hoping to make his 494th NASCAR Nationwide Series start.
30-30 on the first lap. That's a decent first lap, you know, for the guys he's racing against.
But
these guys are not going
to
for
go.
the pole.
I know, but he's got to go. Like we talked about,
right.
I think that 30 flat is about where you're going to wind up being safe. And he's not there yet.
But, you know, I think sometimes you're sitting at home and you're looking at it and you're like, well, this guy's got no shot at the pole. That's not what it's about for these guys. It's about getting in the race and being here when this thing's over with.
And unfortunately, right now for Jason,
light out and locks Danny Efland in. So Stephen Light, John Borneman, and Andy Ponstein have been bumped out.
And we look at O'Quinn and Derek and Setzer and some of those guys. Some of these guys, the last 4 or 5 cars, are really good drivers. They're just, the equipment they're in is just not up to snuff right now. You know what I mean? It's got nothing to do with the teams. It's got nothing to do with really thing that's going on. 1 accident on pit road. Heck,
on roller skates.
15 wins, 1 accident on pit roads on roller skates. Yeah, we only have 1 on film, I guess. But then there may be more than that. I don't know. But Morgan's been roller skating his whole life, okay? But when you look at this, you know, it's just the economics of the sport. When you get back into this group of cars here, the guys that don't run on a weekly basis, or at least try to, they just don't have they don't have the economic base that a Roush has or that a Gibbs has. So, I mean, when you come here and think that you run within a second of what some of these guys run with the money they've got, that's pretty phenomenal in itself.
And right quick, we talk about where you want to be. This right here, if you pass that mark on our tracker, that will automatically lock you into the field.
Morgan made Daytona but missed California.
He's got a long way to go. I mean, that's one of the slowest first laps we've had all day long.
Yeah, Morgan's car's moving around a little bit, you know. And when we talk about cars bouncing, and you talk about cars during qualifying, you see this car bounce as it goes to the center of the corner. You know, you're just beat on shock technology. You know, these guys, you go in a Roush truck or you go in a Gibbs truck and they got 100 shocks there. Or they got parts and pieces to make a number of shocks. I won't say 100. That's probably an exaggeration. Morgan really didn't pick it up on the second lap there.
Derek Cope in the 73 will be followed by Dennis Setzer and Brian Scott. And that should be it for Nationwide Series qualifying.
Now, Derek was pretty good in final practice, but he's got to find about, honestly, he's going to be looking for about a half of a second to be able to make this field here today.
But, you know, and that's from yesterday, right? Is that what you're saying? And you know, the racetrack's been a little faster, but for some people, and it's funny because you sit down there and you see other people run 3 and 4 tenths faster and you think, man, I can go out and pick that up. And you go out and run the same speed. And that's incredibly disheartening. I think we saw it earlier in the day with a couple of cars that just run the same speed they ran yesterday. But the racetrack's capable today of giving you that 2 or 3 tenths if you can throw in your 2 or 3 tenths as a driver, the racetrack's capable of giving you a little bit today too.
All right, that's 2 tenths faster than he ran yesterday on his first lap. But guys, he's going to have to pick it up if he wants to make this race. Right now, he's on track to run about the same speed that Jason Keller did.
You know how we talked earlier. I always hated to be the first guys out. Okay, but I always hated to be the last 4 or 5 guys out too in this position, because when you were the last 4 or 5 out and he picks it up to a 39, but I don't think that's good enough.
Car.
But when you were the last 4 or 5 guys out, you knew at least I didn't like it, but the positive of it was you knew what you had to do. There's that time already up there. You know you got to beat, whatever it is, a 50 or 30 or whatever it is. You know you got to go out and beat that time. And when you don't do it, at least you know what you're shooting at. But I always like to shoot at the unknown more than I like to have a target sometimes, you know what I mean? Because it's like, well, I didn't know. If I didn't know I had to run a 50, I'd have run a 50 for you. I'm sorry. I didn't know that,
The problem is you were the target, right?
Yeah, I was always the target. That was the bad part.
Speaking of 50, happy birthday to Dennis Setzer. He turns 50 years old today out of Newton, North Carolina.
You know what he wants for his birthday?
He wants to start the show.
Exactly right. Save the dancing girls and the cake boys. All I want to see is a green flag wave. And right now he is on track to put down a pretty impressive qualifying effort here. He is up there flirting with a top 20 start.
287 Camping World Truck Series starts for Setzer.
All right, crew chief, you're in.
Yeah, then you're...
Shut it down.
It always amazes me, and I hear you guys when I watch